We are back, Politics Done Right, in Philadelphia with Netroots Nation 2019. Look, we again are here in the presence of people that are on the ground working. You know, that is something that we talk about all of the times, and we're going to continue to talk about. We have in our presence Aaron Fowles, Program Director of Ranked Choice Tennessee. How are you doing, my dear friend?
Very well, thank you so much.
Now tell me, look, Tennessee. When we think Tennessee, we don't normally think things that one would consider a progressive type of issue that I consider this. I don't know about others, but I consider this a very progressive issue.
Tennessee has got a long progressive history. There is in East Tennessee something called the Highlander Center, which is a training ground for progressive activists, where Martin Luther King Jr. himself did a lot of early training. And Northeast Tennessee, East Tennessee has got more of a history. I mean, Memphis, the civil rights movement.
Right, well that is true, that's true.
So now we're in a different era where nationally we have red state politics, and I'll take that back. We'll say we have a conservative ethic and a conservative politic, but you've got where people are living closely together, and the disparities that result from that, you get people finding new ways and new solutions.
Right.
And ranked choice voting is just one that addresses a few issues.
Okay, first of all, let's talk about what exactly is ranked choice voting, and secondly, why?
Okay. Ranked choice voting is a simple upgrade to our voting that can have a dramatic impact in our elections. Instead of voting for one person when you go to the ballot box, you rank candidates in order of preference. In this way, a runoff is simulated without requiring a second visit to the polls. In Memphis, where I live, the drop-off between a general election and a runoff election is 80%.
Oh my God, wow.
And most of that drop-off is concentrated in low-income communities of color.
Right.
There is one precinct in particular where the drop-off was 95%. And this is attributable to lack of transportation, lack of childcare, lack of time off work, and the fact that data-driven campaigns target super voters, certain turnout voters, and data-driven campaigning in regular plurality two-round runoff elections doesn't encourage candidates to reach out to these voters or to represent them when they're in office.
It's funny because I call that, what is that process where you had to pay to vote? I call that it's sort of pseudo type.
That's a poll tax.
Right.
Being able to get to the ballot box.
Right.
Now, in Tennessee, we have early voting, 2 weeks. Now, in some municipalities, specifically I know for Nashville, that first week of early voting is only at one location.
Right.
So that's great if you live or work near that one location. You get an extra week to vote.
Right.
But if you're in Antioch, which is southeast Nashville, and that's going to take a bird scooter or somehow there's some transportation system that isn't really extant. In Memphis, they try to do that. They try to limit early voting in the first 3 days to one early voting location in a rather nice part of town, which has a partisan balance, Democrat-Republican, but not a racial balance.
Right.
And so somebody who wanted to go from Whitehaven, which is ironically named, to go to that area, it'd take 2 hours on a bus.
Right.
And there was an activist who actually did that bus ride to prove it.
Right.
So my animation is, if you can make it to the polls, if you can overcome these barriers to voting, if you can pay the figurative poll tax of getting your butt out there, your vote should count. And you shouldn't have to do it twice. For me, it doesn't matter. I hop in my Prius, and I go. But I used to work at an elementary school, and I worked on an election. It was a polling place.
Right.
People would drop their kids off and leave, and in the afternoon I'd say, "Hey, did you vote today?" No. You vote early?
Yes.
No. You vote absentee? No. Why not? They'd say, "Dude, I got 3 kids, 2 jobs, 1 car, no time." So if you can overcome that once, that should be enough.
Right.
And we have a way to do it. That results in a majoritarian candidate.
And not only that, it results in the right candidate really getting elected.
The candidate who gets elected enjoys the broadest amount of support possible.
Exactly.
And it's measurable.
Right.
That's important to me, that it's measurable.
Right. So are you getting a lot of resistance in Tennessee?
Significant, namely from elected officials and campaign
Both sides,
consultants.
or is it based
Oh,
on...
both sides. This is nonpartisan. We've heard that this is a Republican ploy to get Republicans elected, that it's a Democrat ploy to get Democrats elected. We've heard racial overtones over it. The people who support it are the people who understand it,
Right.
and the people who want their elections to be easier, cheaper, faster, and broader.
There's an underlying story here that many don't talk about, and there's a reason why I would say people don't want it on both sides, and that is it costs a lot of analysts, consultants, and all of those others quite a bit of big money, because when they have those reruns, it costs a whole lot of money to run that, and somebody's making a hell of a lot of money on that.
There was an election in Nashville. It was a runoff for a vice mayor.
Right.
Because there was a special election, and then that went to a runoff. In the special election, about 90,000 people voted
Right.
for vice mayor. In the runoff, which cost $750,000, 30,000 people voted. So they had about a 66% drop off, and they had to pay $750,000 to do it.
And when you say they had to pay for that election, remember the amount of companies that are paid out of that $700,000. Who wants to lose the opportunity to get that?
And for me, if an election commission knows that it doesn't have to budget for a subsequent runoff election,
Right.
it can open up more polling places in the general.
Absolutely.
I mean, so this could literally provide voting access for more people. And anecdotally, when RCV is introduced in a municipality, turnout increases. Now, it's hard to say that it's causative.
The correlation, right.
It's definitely correlated, but
Right.
there's no data to say that it is correlated.
Right.
Or
The
causative,
causative,
excuse me. So, I mean, if you can make it to the ballot box, your vote should count. And in Memphis, this has been on the charter since 2008, but it's never been implemented. And it was obstruction from our own city council. And let me tell you how obstructive they were. There's a radio show, also, I mean, they're Facebook and online, and it's run by a shock jock preacher kind of guy.
Right.
And the shock jock preacher was there, and there was a city council member who was sitting right next to him, an elected official sitting right next to him. And the preacher started talking about me, because I was active in the Save IRB Memphis campaign to keep it on the charter. He read off my phone number, he read off my address, where my wife and children sleep at night. He read it off on air, with a city council member sitting right next to him.
Wow. That is sad. Well, I tell you what, why don't you tell folks again what the Ranked Choice Tennessee is all about? Mm-hmm. What are you trying to promote, and how would you like to see that run across Tennessee, across other states, across the country?
We're an organization that provides education and advocacy around ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is a method of voting where you rank your candidates in order of preference, typically 1, 2, and 3, sometimes more. It can be used for single-member or multi-member districts. My sole mission right now is purely to let people know how this system works. We also advocate for its passage. We've worked in Memphis and Nashville, and we hope to work in other cities in in Tennessee to begin with the eventual goal of seeing if people across the state want it. You know, this is all about what people actually want and measuring it. And so if we find a way to measure that people want it, they should have it. Memphis has got provisions in the Constitution for home rule. So there are some cities that can do it by referendum. So we're working on that. We've received pushback from the state election coordinator. Ranked Choice Tennessee has recently successfully intervened in this administrative lawsuit, which will probably be appealed to Chancery Court eventually. If the administrator finds, similar to how we found in the last suit, was that he believes, for reasons that I don't believe, that ranked choice voting doesn't comply with state law, we're going to get a judge to actually look at it and make a determinative ruling, not a non-binding opinion. And then we really want to focus on seeing if this could help elsewhere in the South. There are several southern states that use ranked choice voting for overseas and military voters.
Right.
Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Springfield, Illinois, I think. And if it's good enough for military and overseas voters, let's give all voters a chance to use this. You know, the system that makes voting more equitable. Tennessee doesn't have no excuse absentee voting.
Right.
If we could all vote at home in our pajamas, this might be a moot point. But we
Right.
don't have that yet. So this is an opportunity within municipalities to make this kind of change. Now, the Memphis City Council tried to get ranked choice voting outlawed statewide. They paid a lobbying firm with Memphis tax dollars to try to get somebody to carry the bill in the Senate. We beat that. Then they spent 40,000 more tax dollars on a public education campaign, which was really was just campaigning for the repeal.
Right.
We beat that. So the people of Tennessee are speaking ever more loudly on this issue, and we're just trying to amplify those voices.
Aaron Fowles, keep up the good work. Grassroots is what's going to take.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.